All right, we're live again. Welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. Today is a really special episode. We have a lot of good people on today, talking about something that I actually talked at a WordCamp about. I gave a talk about this, but I wanted to get other people's opinion or get other people involved in the conversation because I feel like leveling up as a WordPress developer isn't the easiest thing to do. Um, and if you want to do it, sometimes there's so many paths you can take. That you know it's not clear always the best or the right path to take to become a better developer. I'm gonna do the same thing I usually do with intros. I'm gonna start on my left with Carl, but when you guys are giving your intro, give your intro and then give like a 2-minute spiel of how did you get into development and how long you've been developing, and then basically how did you get to where you are today. Keep it quick. We're going to be asking a lot of other questions, so I just want to know basic origin story of each person. So go ahead and introduce yourself and then give a little origin story. So Carl, take it away.
All right. Hello, I'm Carl Xander. I write on carlalexander.ca. To answer Roy's question, I've been developing since I'm about, I want to say 8 years old, so I'm not going to give you the full lowdown, but I started at 8 on a Mac with Apple Logo Writer. I actually started doing robotics around that time too, and I've been programming on and off since then. I'd say recently I just started, I was a sysadmin, and then I decided I wanted to be a programmer, and then I got into WordPress, and I've been with WordPress since 2009. I'm done.
Oh, all right. Matt, are you there?
I'm here.
Cool, Matt. Why don't you go?
Cool. Hey, I'm Matt Cromwell. I am head of support and community outreach at WordPress. We build premium plugins, and my origin story is what's development? I don't know. I guess I do it sometimes. No, I mean basically I started building stuff for free, and eventually built enough stuff for free that I started to ask people to pay me for it. That's the 30,000 foot overview of my origin story, and been working in a product space for the last few years now.
All right. Next we have Megan.
Yay! So I tried to get the little bar going, but I don't know, some Google Authenticator thing. So my name is Megan Haynes. I have been developing since, oh my gosh, the GeoCities days. But it wasn't really development back then. It was just HTML and CSS. And then I eventually got into WordPress about 10 years ago when a simple client was like, hey, you want to I want to update my site. And I'm like, okay, go learn $10,000 of software and all sorts of stuff. Then it kind of just became like a little one thing, next thing, and the next thing, and it's almost like you just love exploring every single factor of it. So now I'm developing plugins, themes, customizations for WordPress of all kinds and all sizes, and I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome. Next we have Michelle.
Hey, I'm Michel Bluma from Montreal. First lines of code were like in the late 90s, but it was just HTML and a little bit of CSS and image-ready slicing and shit like that. Then I didn't touch the web for a while, and I ended up doing VBA. So I ended up automating Excel. The record button is a great way to learn scripting, and I just kept a foot in the door of web, and at one point I just had to jump in and do some PHP and some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and that brings us here. So full-time dev, about 5 or 6 years now.
Awesome. And last we have Steven.
Hi, I'm Steve Stroms. I actually put in 10 years in the print industry, and I thought I would do that as a lifelong career. And it was more, it was sort of a background technical thing called pre-press, and I learned a lot about laying out print, but not like creating magazines as far as content. It was more just the technical, how to get it from it's been produced, how to get it to the printing press. But then the economy tanked, and I was laid off in 2008, 2009. So I had done a little bit of dabbling, like Michelle said, like a little bit of image ready, some HTML, CSS, slicing things up and exporting out Photoshop, huge amounts of JavaScript. And so I had done that some while I had my full-time job, and I took a few years off, came back to it in 2010, and then started using WordPress in 2011. And I've just been full-time freelance ever since. So about 6 years of WordPress.
Very cool. I'm Roy Sivan. I'm a WordPress developer for currently working at Disney. I started coding when I was in the late 90s. I was in middle school at the time, like 8th grade, learned HTML before CSS was really a thing. Fast forward to college, I started paying my tuition, book and rent and stuff with building out websites for people, although it wasn't my major. And eventually realized how much I loved it. So fast forward another decade, and now I'm a full-time developer at Disney. I've been using WordPress on and off, but for the most part since it came out. I think my first install was 0.7, although I do consider myself more of a PHP developer before that, front-end developer nowadays. So WordPress is just another tool in the woodshed. So leveling up. There's a lot of good ways to kind of take, where you're starting out and kind of level yourself up to, let's say, becoming someone who can charge a lot more for your services. So let's start there. I had a question written down for those of you who do freelance. So Steve and Michelle and Megan, I think you do some freelance work too. Where have your rates gone from the beginning point to where it is now? Because ultimately that's one of the main reasons most people will say, why should I even learn code, or why should I even worry about leveling up? I think the end goal is you can charge more. So let's just start there. So how about you? Like, how much have you guys increased? You guys don't have to tell me exact figures if you don't want to, but Megan, why don't we start with you? How have you increased your hourly rate, stuff like that?
Yes, so when I started, my rate was, similar to what a lot of people do, which is take what I make hourly, trying to get $20, $25 an hour just to get some cash flowing in. That didn't last for very long because quickly I realized I don't have time. I can't just keep up with that, and it doesn't really cover costs when you start freelancing. You're responsible for taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So my rates have only gone up, and every year I end up with people telling me my rates are too low or whatnot. That's usually my sign that I raise my rates, is when I get that type of feedback. So right now I've at least quadrupled my initial hourly rate, and the benefit to that is kind of not only am I working less, but I'm actually making more because I've got more time, and I get to pick the projects that I want instead of just kind of taking everything at that bottom barrel rate.
Awesome. How about you, Michelle?
I was totally undercharging. While at first I was doing after hours dev, trying to get into it, and I was charging something like $25 an hour or $30 an hour, which was ludicrous because it was a hobby at the time, so that was great. But today I could not live off of that. Rates have sort of tripled. Not going into specific numbers, but yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable. And the thing is, I can do what I used to do in 4 or 5 times, and 4 or 5 times quicker and a lot better. I'm guessing this is not for today's show, but that's also why value pricing and pricing by feature versus pricing by time. hourly pricing is just such a horrible idea, I find, because of course I'm going to look super expensive compared to someone else and super cheap compared to Carl. But it's the end goal is what we should be charging for, or anyways.
But like for a typical, let's say a full build, you are definitely charging more nowadays because you've learned so much more.
Ridiculous. I used to do like full websites for $500, which is like, come on, that's not a
500 Canadian.
500 Canadian. So that's about, I don't know, $65 US approximately. Yeah, that's not sustainable. I mean, I love what I do, and I'm glad that I get to do it, but I have to pay my mortgage too.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Steve? Have you seen an increase in your value or how much you charge based on what you've been learning and as you've been leveling up?
Yeah. This is a crazy topic for me. I do charge more now, but my hourly rate actually went down this year from what I had it last year. And not a lot, but in some cases it did. And I'm with Michelle on this. Hourly rates, I don't even care. Like, yeah, my hourly rate might have went down or whatever, but my income went up. So, and the value of what I provide went up, and how I structured my quotes was more professional. And yeah, so like flat rates for projects, I like that. Although that's got its own issues if I don't estimate well, but and this topic just goes into lots of different tangents. Like scoping out projects is really important, you know. But yes, my rates have gone up. I started out at like 35, and at one point I was at 100, and now I've gone down some. And
yeah, I mean, with leveling up comes expertise. So I definitely understand. My rates are always all over the place when I'm doing contract work, so I totally get that too. Like, end client, I will charge a lot more per hour or for a project than I will, let's say, if Matt at WordImpress wants to hire me, I will charge him a lot less because I don't deal with a client. So, I mean, there's all those kind of fluctuations. Right. And that's kind of the
charge less
thing.
if I'm subcontracting with an agency. Like, I feel like it's worth it definitely for me to charge less.
So pricing and value pricing, that, again, as Michelle said, a whole nother topic, but definitely very interesting. It does correlate a lot with as you learn and you're learning more. So we have one person join us who didn't get to do an intro. His name is Chris. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been coding and a little bit of your origin story. So where you've come from and how you got to where you are today.
Sure thing. Hi, Roy. My name is Chris Flanagan, and I am I actually just got a new job, so I'm the director of digital technology at this company called Quasar. Mostly I'm just WordPress hacking all day, managing our apps getting developed. I started development when I was around 13. I got caught stealing cigarettes and got arrested, and my father grounded me for a year, so all I had to do was play around on the computer for a year and learn to build websites. I went to college for interactive design and then business, and yeah, today I've been doing WordPress for probably 4 years as just WordPress. So
nice. And you are a full-time developer like myself, but you also do freelance work?
I do a lot of freelance work. I'm actually trying to slow that down a little bit, but yeah, I've been doing freelance work primarily since sophomore year in college, I guess. I charged $17 an hour. I thought I was charging so much freaking money back then, but the quality of my code was probably worth less than $17 an hour, so I was actually doing pretty good for myself.
So let me ask you the same question I asked these three. Have you noticed that as you level up as a developer, as you gain more and learn more, have you been able to charge more also?
Yes, I think the reason for that is because of demand. The better I've gotten, and I'm not exactly sure how it happens. I don't know if it's people talking or just my name being out there more, but as I've become a better engineer, a lot more freelance work is coming my way. I'm actually turning down freelance work for like the first time ever this year. It's incredible, and that kind of gives me the room to charge what I feel is the value of my work. And I do charge by the hour. I quote hourly rates, but typically if it's for a friend or for a client I've been working with a lot, then I keep good track of my hours. For new clients or big projects with new clients, I typically estimate how many hours it's going to take me, calculate my rate, and then that's what I end up charging for the project. I just don't even keep track of my time that much. I say, this is the estimate based on my hours, boom. And now if the scope extends on the project, then yeah, I'll start charging more than the original estimate. But that's pretty much how I do it these days.
I got to interrupt and ask, who in the world made that awesome painting right behind you? Oh my gosh.
I did. That's mine. I love painting movie scenes. I paint a lot of Life Aquatic, Jurassic Park.
You should see his Bill Murray's. They're awesome.
We're having
So that
a
is
chat.
Steve Gutenberg.
Yeah, we're having a chat. Yeah, what is that? Like, who is that, and where is that from?
That's Dr. Malcolm, Jurassic Park, right after the T-Rex incident. Come on, man.
Oh, not
Work for
Steve
Disney.
Gutenberg.
Jeez.
Not Steve Gutenberg. Okay.
All right.
Put this here while I talk.
What is
Yeah,
his name?
front and center.
That's awesome.
All right, back to topic. So, as developers are kind of growing, there's kind of some main areas that I wanted to touch on when it comes to as they're learning. So, one thing that I think a lot of developers help. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out a good way to word this. Let's just talk about what happens when you hit a wall, because developers, as they are learning, tend to hit a lot of walls. So where do you guys go? I'm going to bring this up to Carl first, because I know that he has a lot of good resources. So Carl, when you're, maybe not now because you know everything now, so I'm assuming you don't ever hit walls ever. But back when you were like,
never know everything. So that's the first rule.
Yeah, back when you were a normal human being and you actually didn't know everything, where did you go, or what did you do when you hit a wall with code and you basically got to a point where you didn't know something?
I don't know. It's really interesting. Like, I started WordPress before kind of Stack Overflow and all those resources kind of took off. So I'm gonna leave it to WordPress, since this is a WordPress podcast. But like for WordPress, actually, what got me learning about WordPress the most was Xdebug, actually, when I started off. So I would put breakpoints, and then I would go through the code as it was doing things, and I would figure out what was going on inside WordPress. And I'd learned a lot. Like, I learned a ton just going through that, because just figuring out what's going on in core is, I think, a really important skill set, at least for, like, if you're growing up for WordPress developers, just figuring out what WordPress is doing at different stages. Because there's a lot of APIs, and they kind of hide a lot of the inner workings for you. So I think that's really important. And now, like, I mean, you have Stack Overflow. So, like, if you have questions, you Stack Overflow, you get answers. Otherwise, you read code. I've written about that before. Like, I think reading code is like the single most important skill set that you can have as an advanced developer.
What do you mean reading code? So someone who's just starting out, you want them to just open up like a WordPress source file and just read the file?
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't go at random and just pick like a random file and go in it. But if you're having a specific problem, maybe instead of Googling it, you could try to debug it, see what's going on inside WordPress, read the code around the bug that you're having, things like that. I mean, I do it for any framework. Like, if I want to learn what Laravel is doing, or especially I spend a lot of time with Symfony, like, I would read the shit out of the code of Symfony, because I just want to know what was going on. Because the point of frameworks and WordPress, the same thing, is to give you tools to ease the work for you. But when you're trying to level up as a developer, you need to know what those frameworks or other tools are doing to make your life easier, because you're trying to learn these skills that the advanced developers use to make those frameworks in the first place. So that's really a good location to look at it.
Yeah, how about the rest of you? Does anyone else have a good place that you guys go to when you guys hit a wall and literally just don't know something and you know you need to get to that next step?
I think it's I think your tools are really, so Carl mentioned Xdebug, but I think for me the biggest change was when I actually went from a text editor to an IDE. At the time it was NetBeans. Tried it out, scared the hell out of me because it's so much more complex. Like now we've been talking about PHP Storm. You open that the first time, you're like, what the hell am I doing? The thing is, being able to jump around code before even before even set that up, just being able to control click on a piece of code to figure out what is this method and what does it do, what is this class. Being able to analyze it's going to really help you out a lot, I find. So if you hit a wall,
source, friend. Go to source. But yeah, that's a really good one. IDEs too. That's a really good way to navigate. Like if you're trying to recode, like I couldn't do it without an IDE for sure.
No, but even when you're figuring out stuff in the beginning, it's really like, yeah, I think it's really important. And plus, it'll also hold your hand sometimes. It'll even, if you let it, it'll shout at you like Carl does to some people. It'll just tell you this code. I don't think you want this to do what you think you want it to do. So not even without going into unit testing or code sniffing or anything like that, it will help you out because it understands your project, not just the file that's open, but the whole project. So I think that analysis really helps you then figure out what you're looking at. So if it's a code wall, if it's like a concept wall, then yeah, Stack Overflow, people things like that.
I usually just ask Roy. That's how I get through a wall. That's what I do. No, but literally, like for me, like I love tools. I love just digging into code directly. But for me personally, the best ways that I grew as a developer was through collaboration and community. Like I wouldn't be able to do like 99% of what I do today if I hadn't had a strong bunch of people who were always helping me out and talking me through things and who were there to answer questions and all that kind of thing. I mean, there's certain types of folks. There's some folks who really love documentation and will dig into it all alone late at night at 2 in the morning with coffee in their hand. You know, there's folks who will do that to figure stuff out. There's others who are more want to talk it through, need to verbalize it and think it out loud, or through interaction with people in one way or another. And I mean, the more you get to know good developers who you can bribe to do things for you, I have bribes over all the people in this room probably. Then the more that they benefit you and help you out and accelerate your growth.
I noticed last night
Absolutely.
actually. Go ahead, Megan.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, I will. So yes, yeah. It just reminded me that last night I had posted in.
Okay.
What's that? Am I frozen? Am I here?
You're not. She's
Okay.
a little bit frozen.
Okay. So anyway, last night I posted in Advanced WordPress because I had a problem that was killing me for a couple of days, and just typing it out in there, I left for a minute and I came back to it, and reading what I typed out, I solved my issue like almost instantly. Like just typing it out, and some dude commented in there, said this called the rubber duck method.
Speak to the duck.
Yeah, you talk to the duck. You just talk your program out, or writing it down or whatever. And it really, like, it took me 2 days, 3 days to solve this, but just walking away from it and writing about it, and I figured it out like almost instantly. But it was nice to have the community there to kind of do that too, because I was talking to the community. I'm not sure if I could pull it off with the rubber duck or not. I should probably give that a shot. But
And that was the Facebook group, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the Advanced WordPress Facebook group, which Matt actually runs or helps
He's
run.
the boss man out there, yeah.
He's the boss of Advanced WordPress. If you aren't part of Advanced WordPress and you're watching, definitely join Advanced WordPress on Facebook.
But rubber ducking really does work, because just having to explain your problem, oftentimes you will find the problem just by saying it out loud. Just because you're trying to explain it to someone in layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, part of rubber duck too is also learning the ability to ask a really good question, because that's honestly sometimes that's a problem in AWP, is that the question is, everything is broke, how do I fix it? Like sometimes that's the question. and you're not going to make any progress with that kind of question, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of IDE or debug you have or anything. Like being able to formulate exactly what your problem is the first step to recovery.
So during my talk in LA last year, I talked about this a very similar concept. I called it Google Foo, and it's the ability to Google correctly, because it's one thing to say how to make a slider work or how to make JavaScript work, but if you have a little bit of knowledge, right, and you can kind of dissect that a little bit more, you can say, hey, my jQuery something is creating this error at this line. You know, here's a gist or like a quick piece of the code that I can show you. Here's where it's breaking. Can someone help me? That kind of question, whether it's posted to AWP or you're looking on Google, the more detailed you're going to get, the better the answer you're going to get as well. If you're posting on AWP and you're posting something like, stuff's broke, please help, yeah, you're not going to get too much help. But and same with Google. But if you can type something very specific, like, here's my error message, and maybe involve someone, talk about what other framework you're using, whether it's jQuery or some other plugin for jQuery or a WordPress plugin, you'll get a lot better answers and faster. You'll get the answer faster. So I think Google Foo, as I call it, or has been called, is definitely another way of leveling up. So always try your best to really understand as much as you can whatever your error is or whatever it is you're doing, so that when you do hit a wall, you can explain it as much as you can, and that way you get the best answers out of it.
Yeah, that's why I like teaching a lot, actually. Over the last 2 years, that's one of the reasons I like the teaching aspect of technical writing, is having to learn to explain something to somebody that's not necessarily as technically strong as you is a really, really good way of making sure that you understand the concepts themselves. It's actually a talk that me and Josh pitched for LoopConf. Just did teaching as a way to grow as a developer as well, because I think it's really important as well. So yeah, but it goes back to the rubber ducking. It's the same idea. It's just you're doing it to an audience.
One last question I wanted to ask you guys before we go here is resources, actual website resources that you guys go to learn. Stack Overflow, great for when you have an actual question. But what are some websites you go to when you just want to learn something? Like when you just want to pick something up, or you want to learn, let's just say JavaScript, because JavaScript's the big hot topic right now with WordPress after WordCamp US. So people are starting to pick it up. What are some good websites that you guys turn to learn new things?
If I can say something without it sounding like a rant, I used to love the Codex. And now, for some reason, they've decided, hey, let's drop the Codex and put it all into the Dev Handbook. Which means that we went from manuals that had explanations and use cases and ways to use the different functionality to the equivalent of control-clicking the function, again, like we were talking about. So that was a huge learning resource for me, and at first, the Codex, and it seems to be going the way of the Dodo. Sure. So that I find really unfortunate for people just starting out now.
I totally agree with that.
Do you have preferred schools that you use, like Udemy or something, or?
I honestly, like, I don't have like go-to websites that I use for learning things. I like to learn by, I think that we all are echoing this, I like to learn by doing. So I'll have a specific task that I want to get done, if it's with JavaScript or whatnot, and I'm trying to figure it out. And then at one point I'll just search for it, and whoever has the best. I mean, I end up being, there are definitely common sites that come up often when I'm searching for help. And like, I mean, CSS Tricks honestly has a ton of good JavaScript resources as well, ironically. Hongycat, actually, I don't know how to pronounce that website. Honkyat, anybody know what I'm talking about? Anyway, it's a good website too that comes up often. But in general, I don't have like one go-to. I end up just, yeah, searching for what I'm looking for, and whoever has the best SEO wins.
I'm with you, Matt. Same here, man.
I like the I also like the I'm definitely a learn by doing kind of person, and I do like the notion of let me create a task or a challenge for myself and let me see how I can code it and learn how to code it. It's also why I really like Lynda, because Lynda does that for you. Like all of their courses are activity based. Learn like you are coding. You're downloading like what the developer is working on as you're looking at their screen. And you're actually doing something. And you can actually take the initiative to either follow along with the Lynda course, or maybe you'll follow along for a few minutes and then you understand what they're saying, so then you kind of take it to the next direction. So I really like Lynda for that matter. I also have a front-end master's membership, which I don't use nearly as often as I should, but they are a more classroom, or an online classroom setting where it's like you're looking in as a teacher who has like a whiteboard or a chalkboard basically. So depending on your learning style, I'll always say, and I agree with Matt, learning by doing. Set out a challenge for yourself, whether it's WordPress or something else, and just say, hey, I need to do something. With WordPress, some of the easiest things you can learn, if you want to level up right now, create a plugin, have it do something very basic, or create a child theme first. So learn how to create a child theme, and then learn how to create a theme from scratch. Whether it's even if you're using underscores or something, but learn how to do those three things: make a plugin, make a child theme, make a regular theme, and you'll be you'll just start on that path of, all right, let me learn this now. Let me learn this now. It's all about getting the ball rolling. As soon as you stop learning, and this is also another huge piece of advice that I give everyone who wants to be a developer: never stop learning. Always keep learning new things. And I know it gets really challenging, especially if you have a day job and you're swamped with work, but try to use anything you can as an opportunity to learn something new. So even if someone's like, hey, I found this really awesome theme, can you build a website with it? Challenge them and say, no, I'm going to create my own theme so you learn, and then charge them the same amount. Or, maybe you'll take a hit, because you'll spend a little more time, but then you'll end up learning out of it. It's called, we do that a lot. It's technical debt as well, so to speak, where you're kind of not getting paid as much, but you're learning a lot more, or you're advancing yourself or your systems a lot more. Definitely a good way to keep yourself leveling up. I think the last piece, tying into Michal, that I always talk about is workflow. Find a workflow that works well for you with the tools. So he mentioned PHP Storm. That seems to be IDE of choice nowadays. A lot of WordPress developers. NetBeans also, a lot of people still use it. Coda, Sublime Text, also a very popular one. Just find a workflow.
IDEs.
Yeah, I mean, a mix of IDEs and text editors. Sorry, God, one of those people.
The line kind of blurs for some of them. Sublime, Atom.
Yeah. It's not about. I
mean,
mean, it does really help having a good editor for your code. But I would say just having a good workflow, like having a good way to go from a piece of code to a website and doing everything in between. Having that workflow set up the way you like it is going to be the most ideal way to constantly learn new things, because you don't have to constantly play around with, how am I FTPing this up? Am I using Git? Am I, and then as you're learning, you're going to actually add new things to your workflow, and those themselves are going to have a learning curve to them. Like, I picked up PHP Storm and I hated it at first because it wasn't my Coda, but now I go back to Coda and I'm like, how did I ever use this piece of garbage? So, I think it really, again, workflow is almost another whole nother topic, and it's a whole nother thing, and you have to learn to do that better as well. But at the same time, it can stay constant while you're trying to learn something else. That's it from me. Any other last words from you guys? Any parting words of wisdom for?
I would add, ask for help and find support. through Facebook, Advanced WordPress, the forums on WordPress.org, anywhere you can find it, through Twitter. There's a Reddit group. Like find support somewhere and ask for help. People will definitely help if they want to.
Do not be a lone wolf. Do not spend your time like trying to figure it out yourself for the ego points or for whatever. Someone else has had this problem. You just need to find that person.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the WordPress community. Everyone is, more or less, most people are willing to help people who know less than they do. That's why I love WordCamps and I love the meetups, because they're a great way to just learn new things. Just tying to that, I wanted to tell this story while we were talking about this earlier, and then I'll close up for the day. When I actually applied for Disney during my interview process, I actually had that question asked to me: how do you get around a wall, basically, when there's no resources out there? Like, you've done all your Googling, you've done everything. And my answer to the interviewer was I use IRC, which I do from time to time get on IRC because there's a lot of cool Freenode channels for everything out there. So yeah, I will get on. And while he liked that answer, his real answer he was looking for was, no, you got to turn to the person next to you and ask them. And I was like, duh, but I think I was, along with Megan there, I had little ego points, and I was in an interview, so I was like, no, I could do this without asking anyone. I could awesome dev Roy. But yeah, I mean, even the highest level devs respect the fact that you can ask a question. So feel free to ask questions. You can ask questions even on the WP crowd. Feel free to ask a comment anytime, and we will answer them. But that's it for now. We went a little bit long. I'm sorry. If anyone else has any recommendations for resources or anything like that, feel free to comment down below, and we will keep maybe a listing of that kind of stuff. Oh, also wanted to mention WP Crowd is donating $1 for every time someone doesn't spell WordPress correctly. If you are online and you see WordPress spelled incorrectly with a lowercase p or one s or something like that, take a screenshot, go over to the WPCrowd.com, and you'll see a WordPress typo for donation. Go ahead and submit the form, and we will donate $1 to the place of your choosing. We have chosen one nonprofit called Code Now, which is a nonprofit that teaches kids how to code. We've also brought in our 2 Give stories from our Give Success Stories podcast a couple weeks back. So that's Jesse and Mark. Feel free to donate to them as well. We've gotten a good handful already. We're looking to get a bit more, and I think we're maxing out at around $500, so that'll be a good donation. And whoever's coming to WordCamp San Diego in a few weeks, we will see you there.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. It was an awesome day.
Take care.